Dear students, welcome back. The last topic of Unit 3 is in relation to payrolling. So today we'll cover that in question answer format once again. So we'll get started. So what is payrolling process and what is a payroll? So payroll is a list of employees who get paid by the company on a regular basis. So payroll also refers to the total amount of money the employer pays to its employees. So one is the list with all the names of employees. The other one is the amount that is supposed to be paid to all the employees. So as a business function, what it involves is developing an organizational policy, including flexible benefits, leave encashment policy, and so on. So compensation policy we already spoke about. So first is developing that and defining the components of a pay slip. So what is a pay slip? After the salary is credited in the account of the employees, they get a small report about the details of the salary. So that's a pay slip. So what all a pay slip should contain? So that is also a decision which is to be taken during payrolling. Then gathering other payroll inputs for employees like specific components, deduction. So for with respect to a particular employee, how many leaves he has taken in a month, what is his total salary, what deductions have to be made, and so on. Then next involves actual calculation of gross salary, statutory as well as non-statutory deductions from the gross salary. Doing all this and then arriving at something called the net pay. Then post this payrolling process also involves releasing employees' salary or pay slips after the salary is credited and depositing dues like TDS, PF, etc. with appropriate authorities and filing returns. And this is the job of the employer. He has to deduct all these dues and also, file returns on time. So in short, we can say that payroll process involves arriving at what is due to the employees. Firstly, what is due to the employees, which is called net pay. So total what he deserves and take off the deductions, it becomes net pay. Net pay after adjusting taxes and other deductions. So now let's study in the next question the various stages of payrolling process. So payrolling is usually handled by the HR department of the company, or many times in big MNCs like in Bangalore we see Oracle or IBM or Accenture, they outsource their payrolling process to a payrolling specialist firm. Okay. So a payroll officer, so if it is being handled internally or externally, there is somebody who will be the payroll officer. A payroll officer needs to do careful planning. The entire process can be generally split into 3 stages. One is pre-payroll activities, then actual payroll, and then post-payroll activities. So in pre-payroll activities, the first step is defining the payroll policy or the compensation policy. So as we already discussed, it's a one-time process. The net amount to be paid is affected by multiple factors. So the various policies like pay policy, leave, other benefits, attendance policy, all these have an effect. So such policies have to be clearly defined and also it should be approved by the management so that this is used as a standard for payrolling across the organization. Done. So as a next step in pre-payrolling activity, it is gathering inputs. So obviously you need inputs before processing anything. So it involves interacting with multiple departments and personnel. There can be information like mid-year salary revision or salary correction, attendance data, maternity leaves, and so on. So all this data has to be collected from each department. In smaller organizations, these inputs are received in a consolidated form from fewer teams. But in larger organizations, this has to be carefully collected. Many times, the payrolling software, if that is used with features like leave and attendance management through employee self-service portal, this becomes much more easier. And so I used to work in MNCs where we used to always use a payrolling software, and it used to be just, we used to upload our data and it used to be approved by our seniors. And then for the payrolling team, it is just a click of a button and they have all the details of the employee. Okay, so that is gathering inputs. Then input validation. Once inputs are received, the payrolling team has to also check for validity of the data concerning adherence to company policy, authorization, approval metrics, whether leave has been taken after approval, whether there's an approval mail attached. Okay, and they also need to ensure that no active employee is missed out and no inactive employee records are included in salary payment. Especially this problem happens if an employee leaves midway during the month. So what happens, sometimes his name comes in the next month's payrolling, whereas his name should not appear. It is for final settlement. A new employee joins, his name is missed out. So these things have to be carefully handled. Okay, so these are the pre-payrolling activities: policy decision, gathering inputs and input validation. Then the next stage is actual payroll processing. So in this stage, the payroll calculation actually happens. The input data is fed into the payroll system for actual payroll processing. And after all the deductions and keeping the gross pay, the net pay is arrived at after making the necessary tax adjustments also. So once this is done, it's always a good practice to reconcile the values and re-verify for accuracy to avoid any kind of errors. Now once this is done, we now go to the post payroll process. So yes, payroll is computed, it's all ready. Now what next? First is statutory compliance. So all statutory deductions like EPF, that is for Provident Fund, TDS, ESI. ESI, remember, it is for employees with less than 21,000 salary. They are all deducted at the time of payroll processing, and sometimes even professional tax. We discussed that also. No? The company remits the amount to respective government agencies. Okay, and the frequency of remittance may depend on the type of dues. In most cases, payment of these dues are made via challans. After all dues are paid, a report is also filed. Okay. So statutory compliance is one. Then payroll accounting. So every organization keeps a record of all of its financial transactions. Salary paid is one significant working capital cost, no? And it has to be reported in the books of accounts. And as part of payroll management, it is essential to check that all salary and reimbursement data is fed accurately in accounting or ERP system. So mostly all organizations do use ERP system, or minimum they are using Excel these days, but it's a horrible tedious process when they are doing it manually. Okay. Then the other important post payroll process is, once the computation is done, what is required? Payout. Actually paying salary to employees by cash, by check, or by bank transfer. Typically organizations provide employee with a salary bank account. So once the payrolling is done, one needs to ensure that the company's bank account has sufficient funds to make the salary payment to the employees. Then an advice is sent to the bank or the concerned branch regarding the salary credits that have to be made. This statement is issued with particulars like employee ID, the bank account number, what is the amount of salary or wage to be deposited. So again, when companies use payroll software which is integrated well with all the connecting systems and connecting organizations, this works seamlessly without any errors. And finally, reporting. So reporting is, once payrolling is complete for a month, finance and higher up management might ask for a report, like department wise what has been the employee cost, or location wise, or project wise. So as a payroll officer, it is a very important responsibility to dig out this data and keep the data ready and share it as and when required. Okay. So basically these are the main steps in payrolling in any company. Specific to Indian payroll, just want to mention, when you run payroll, what it means is they have to run few statutory compliance also, which is applicable. These are employment norms set by central and state legislation. The common statutory requirements that apply to Indian businesses include provision of minimum wages, payment of overtime wages to workers, TDS deduction, contribution to social security schemes like Provident Fund, ESI and all. And while calculating salary, all these things should be considered. And also please note, in most of the companies, at the beginning of the year, the employee is asked to make a declaration about his additional incomes, tax saving investments, and so on. And this is called income tax declaration. And accordingly, employees' tax liability is calculated and TDS is deducted. So this is very specific to India. Okay, now moving on. The next topic is the difference between wage and salary. So, salary is a fixed pay that an employee or an individual draws for work done by him on an annual basis. Usually they will say salary is 10 lakhs per annum or 8 lakhs per annum. So this is an annual payment. This is also called CTC, that is cost to company. Whereas wage is a variable pay that an individual draws on the basis of hours spent in completing a certain amount of work. So wage is generally, we discuss, it is time based or piece rate based. It is for amount of work done. Okay, they are all not always in the permanent roles of the company. Okay, salary is drawn usually by skilled or white collared personnel, whereas wage is drawn by semi-skilled or many times unskilled workers also. The salary cost is usually fixed. The wage cost is usually variable because it depends on work. Payment is done as per work done or time spent. Okay. The payment cycle for salary is monthly and payment cycle for wages usually daily or weekly. And the salary is paid based on the employee's performance. Wage is paid either based on time spent or the output. Salary is paid to employees, wage is paid to laborers. And nature of work for salaried employees is usually managerial or administrative office work, something like that. For wages, it is manufacturing or process related work. KRA, that is key resultant area or areas where key achievements are defined. So that is done in case of salary. Usually at the beginning of the year, the main areas where the employees have to show some achievement is decided, that is setting objectives in advance. Whereas in case of wage, there is no such thing. And generally for salary, there is no extra pay for extra work. So you can hear so many people working in MNCs say that they work for 10 hours, 14 hours, work on weekends, but there is no special payment for that. Whereas for wages, it is time-based pay or output-based pay. So obviously, if they are spending more time, they do get extra amount. Okay, students. With this, we'll now be moving on to the next unit. We have unit 4 and unit 5 left. I might be starting off with unit 5 and completing that first, and then we'll again come back to unit 4, which has quite a lot of things which are a repeat of our unit 2 and fringe benefits and compensation details. Okay, thank you so much.